Nicholls. I work in classics. I'm a Roman historian, and my research work concerns the built environment of the city of Rome and cities around the Roman Empire. And I've been supported in some digital applications of that research work through the University Teaching Fellowship Scheme. I'm an early career teaching fellow, through the annual fund, through the Teaching and Learning Development Fund, to all of whom I'm very grateful. And one of the things I do in the classroom is to create, as some of you will know, digital reconstructions of ancient city environments as a teaching tool. So this is my model of ancient Rome as it appeared around the year AD 315. And the nice thing with digital architecture is you can flip it around, fly into it, zoom over it, pan in and out. And this creates, I hope you agree, some vivid and useful teaching tools. So I use this to illustrate lectures, handouts, printed material, research publications of my own. When I take the students to Rome, I put it in their portfolio for them to look at. So it's very useful as a tool, as a teaching resource. But I wanted to get students involved not just as recipients of finished models, but as creators of and practitioners of models themselves. Some of you will have gone to Neil Morris's talk last term and might remember this slide, where I think this is a familiar concept for many of us, that if you just listen to stuff or get showed stuff, some of it sinks in, much of it doesn't. If you are active in your learning and you're creating, in whatever medium, a resource for yourself, learning actively, a lot more of it sticks in, I find. I thought that was an accurate reflection of what I'd observed. So I wanted to get students not just looking at models, but creating them and engaging with them. So I decided to create an undergraduate module whose content would include the creation of digital architectural models. To step back a bit and explain what these models involve. Models like this are built-in architectural modelling software that involves drawing in 3 dimensions, essentially. It's like a drawing program, but in 3D. And I've had student engagement and involvement with projects like this already, which gave me the confidence to get a module set up around it. These models that I built for the BBC, they were broadcasting a documentary on Rome and Scotland just before Christmas, were put together with the assistance of a Europe student, for example, over the summer. So I found that students could engage with this and produce very nice results. So this is the software. This is a screen grab of me building a simple model of a Roman villa. I've speeded it up for the purposes of this presentation, but only by a factor of 4. So this video takes about 1.5 minutes to play, so it took me just under 10 minutes to build this model. So it's simple, intuitive, user-friendly. It's got a nice interface. You start off in 2 dimensions. You start to push and pull and extrude up into 3 dimensions. And you'll see, as this plays in the background, what the process involves. So I decided to use the local Roman town of Silchester as the basis for an undergraduate model. It has a very good Reading connection. Our archaeology department's been digging it for the last couple of decades. It's local. It's on a reasonable scale to be realistically reconstructed in a couple of years' work. It contains an interesting range of buildings and targets for modelling, so it seemed like a good choice. And I decided to base a Part 3 undergraduate module around creating, over a couple of years, a set of digital models that would together form a digital recreation of Silchester, probably in the early 4th century AD. At this point I'm adding some textures, so effectively colouring in the model to bring it to life a little bit and add a bit of realism to it. So I talked to archaeology about what they would find useful and academically credible. I talked to classics' own external examiners, because this is an unusual teaching tool, at least in a classics context. And I wanted to make sure that I had their support in an unusual assessment regime. So talking to them and talking to my colleagues in classics, I developed this module structure. It runs for third-year students because it's really inquiry-based learning sort of a project. The students are doing a lot of the research work. They're really devising the parameters of their own assessment to an extent by creating and choosing what model they want to build and how they want to build it. So it seems to me appropriate for quite an advanced level of undergraduate study. I run it over 2 terms, the winter and the spring term, because I want the students to get enough time at practicing the software to get good at it. And really, you just have to sit down and play with it. It's fun. It's actually kind of addictive. And I want the students to have enough time that technical skills aren't a barrier to creating a good piece of assessed work at the end. So I have 2-hour classes running in alternate weeks in both those terms in a PC lab in Parma that ITS have kindly put the software into for me. It's free software, so there's no cost barrier. I'm going to take you to Silchester as well. So after initial lectures that were methodological and gave background on Silchester and on the idea of digital heritage and digital recreation, we're moving now into practical workshops, as it were, master classes, where I stand at the front and do stuff on the computer and they follow along. So they're a combination of traditional lecturing but practical workshopping as well, and the students have some input into that. And the assessment regime involves handing in to me, at the end of each of these 2 terms, 2 things. A digital model of a building. I pick it in the first term, they pick it in the second term. They can do any structure from Silchester they want. And accompanying that, a written commentary. And it's this commentary that I hope lends it some academic rigour and some basis on which to assess it in a sort of traditional way. I told the students that it's not a beauty contest. I don't just want a pretty model or something that looks like you could put it straight into Gladiator and it would fit right in, but rather a model that shows evidence of thought, research, discipline, proper comparison. And to help them in that, I've given them a set of marking criteria based on our own essay marking criteria, and also a 2-page briefing document. And I've given you the marking criteria and an excerpt from that briefing document on your handouts. There's no time to go through it in detail, but I thought you might like to see the sort of ways in which I tried to make the commentary exercise equivalent essentially to the bibliography and footnotes for an essay, to explain where the material had come from and what choices they'd made. So the results from this have actually been very pleasing. I've now marked their Christmas assignments. I expected, frankly, 1 or 2 complete crash and burn disasters to its new software, new assessment regime. I didn't get that. I gave a range of first-class marks, including 285s, which is not a mark I give often. No marks below the 2-2 bracket, no complete wipeouts. Most marks in a higher range of averages than I'd expect in a third-year module. So really pleased with the results. And these are some of the models the students created. You can see they've adopted different techniques, different modes of presentation, different styles of reconstruction. Nice intellectual range of approaches to a task. So pleased with the results, certainly enjoying the process. And I've found that it's applicable outside of classics. And of course, you can probably think of applications in your own fields. Perhaps some of you are already using this sort of thing. I'd love to talk to you about it if you are. I have colleagues from history of archaeology and English, either talking to me about digital modelling or sitting in on my sessions and learning the software for themselves, which is nice to see. So I think this is something that's applicable in a wide range of teaching and also research situations around the university. I'd be very glad to talk to you about it and take some questions or chat individually in the group after these presentations.